The Importance of Sports by Kim Jacqueline Weiler. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were sweating as she ran around the corner of the shed to check if she could see him somewhere on the hills. But somehow, she knew he wouldn't be there. As a mother, she felt something was wrong. He had gone to bed early, long before the other family members, and this morning, he had made his bed more diligently than ever before. And she noticed that he had taken with him not only his jacket, but his boots and the warm fur. Immediately, she ran outside and looked for him at the animal cage, at his friend's shed, at the well in the centre of the small community, at the creek in the valley, at his favourite oak tree and in the cave next to the village. He was gone. It felt as if a part of her heart had been torn out. She didn't know what to do, nor even what to think. Where had he gone? And why? Apparently he hadn't been forced to. Had he had an accident? Completely desperate, Amira started to scream. "Vishal, my boy, come back to me, Vishal!" No answer. She couldn't stop screaming even though her throat was feeling terribly dry. At this moment, everybody in the small village was wide awake. Amira's daughters came running up to the entrance of the cave where their mother couldn't keep herself on her feet anymore. Other villagers arrived. While most of them were worried about Amira, one of them said quietly to himself, "So, now, it has happened." Suddenly the crowd turned quiet. "What has happened? Do you know where Vishal has gone?" The man stepped forward. He was a 40-year-old, quite solitary shepherd who spent most of his time on the upper hills playing the flute. "I've observed him throughout the past few weeks. He had changed. Last month, there were some sportsmen from the far west. They were racing up and down the hills on very modern, huge bicycles with broad wheels. I've seen him talking to them." The others wondered. Why should he run away then? He was a good boy. But in the evening, when Amira lay down on her mattress, she started thinking about the shepherd's words. Was he right? Had her son left the village in order to follow the Western people? Did he like them? She remembered that her son had always wanted to have a bicycle when he was younger, but Amira couldn't afford it. And if she could, it would have been an old used one, nothing to ride up and down the hills with. Was Vishal still dreaming of such a bicycle? She didn't know that it meant so much to him. Doesn't he have everything he needs? Isn't he lucky to live in the holy land of Vrindu Vandari, the homeland of the goddess of nature? Amira wondered how her son couldn't appreciate this gift. She almost got upset. Then she began to worry. Vishal was only 14 years of age and he had never left the area of the village at any time before. The next day, Amira made a decision. She wanted to go and find her son. After putting some food, water and blankets into a backpack, she was ready to leave. Determined, she took off. But already, after a 10-minute walk out of the village, she found Vishal sitting on a huge rock. His clothes were covered with mud and were torn in several places. He must have been wandering around the whole night, Amira thought. She warily sat down next to him. For a few minutes, they both sat there, quietly watching the rising sun. Then Amira said, "Please, let me know how you feel." Hesitantly, the young boy began to talk about the strong impression the Western tourists had left on him. During the past few weeks, he had considered his life at the village more and more meaningless. He recognised that he'd probably never see the huge bridge and the ocean the athletes were talking about. He imagined what it would be like to have a bicycle, taking a person over hundreds of miles. The tourists had told him he was a very talented boy and could be successful in Western sports. He could even make a lot of money with sports. How unimaginable! So Vishal had begun to dream of another life. He didn't want to stay a farmer like all of his ancestors and raise his kids within the 120 acres the village was located in. Amira couldn't reply. She just didn't understand. And even though her son agreed to come back home, they didn't speak another word. In the evening, Amira went on a walk. Whilst watching the sunset, she saw a bird seemingly fly into the sun, which was so far away on the horizon, and suddenly she began to understand and to regret. On his way towards the sun, she thought, this bird passes so many fields, so many herds, other villages, other populations, towns, cities, maybe an ocean. Amira had never gotten to see any of that. Finally, the mother took a deep breath, and her mind became as clear as it had never been before. Even though she hadn't had the chance to see these other parts of the world, her son could. So Amira decided to support Vishal. They made an appointment at the sports school in the next city, which was a 5-hour walk away. Even though he'd never believed it, Vishal happened to be one of the lucky students to receive a scholarship. A few months later, the whole village celebrated his farewell. The 95-year-old woman sitting on a rock in front of the cave, smiling at her grandchildren, remembers how proud she had been that day. Yes, my dears, that was when everything changed, when the first reporters came here to figure out where that prodigy had come from.